Here. Smith.
Here.
Here. Hauser.
Here. Judy will be. And do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, and do we have any communication from the public this evening? No? You're it, John. Okay, we don't have items for the July meeting at this point that you need to go over. So we'll move on to item 5, which is the facilities update.
Just a couple of comments for the board. Since the last board meeting, we had one facility leadership team. The agenda and minutes / notes are there for you to review. Coming events, July 4th is the Olmsted Elementary final walkthrough. I think Elise is going to be there from 11 to 1 to let
And John
to let people kind of say their final farewells. And then on July 6th, there'll be a garage sale at Olmsted. I also have to point out Elise and her staff and John's staff were working really, really hard on Friday, utilizing that time, moving things to the gym for the sale, moving things into the gym that would be taken to Rolling Green, to Karen Acres, to Jensen, to Webster. So it was probably the work that not everybody's used to, a lot of manual labor, I guess we call it, but people were really working hard. Elise, great job, great leadership. She's not only working, she's kept feeding energy to everybody, being the head cheerleader, while she was still working really, really hard. Lastly, just as it keeps coming up quite often, and I'd just like to restate, the naming of the new elementary school will take place early in the fall, probably about October. We just want to get the school year started with the new kids and new staff at the 2 new buildings. By policy, it says that I could take recommendations and bring them to the board. There's also a statement in there that says the superintendent can ask for assistance. So I plan to make it more of a community event. We'll have representation from the Historical Society, parents, staff, and ultimately, the ultimate goal is to honor Kern Olmsted and also Jensen, as both of them could be losing their namesake. And again, whatever comes out of that as a consensus will be what I bring forward to the board. So I'll take any questions on facilities. The high school project, they actually had the walls built in with the metal 2x4s for the restrooms. So finally, we're seeing a little bit of movement. There's been no movement on the outside. We were hoping they would have worked like Friday when it was a great day on the outside, but we have seen no movement. So hopefully they'll get started very soon on that.
They've been over digging some footing areas, so it's not clear what we wanted. Yeah.
Thank you, John.
I guess I too just really quick want to echo, well, basically what Steve said. I spent pretty much Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday at Olmsted doing end of year things, and chairs are marked, items are marked. There's no playbook on how to do this, but the staff knew what they were doing. The custodial staff knew what to expect on Friday, with everyone coming to help them in their building, and you could see a sense of teamwork and a sense of understanding organizationally, like it was organized, what was happening and how people to do things, and I sensed a good spirit in the buildings and stuff. So again, I just want to commend the organizational efforts and the great job that I could sense when I was there. So really excited. So.
We actually had the contractors that are going to be doing the HVAC project in the high school today. I didn't get a chance to tell them. And where we had tried to figure a way to do it kind of around Dr. Watson's schedule. He was there with us today, and we figured out a couple of efficiencies to where we're able to get that work done by spring break of next year rather than bleeding clear into the summer. It's all tentative right now, but Dr. Watson was very open to the idea of moving the timeline up, even if he's got to move some wrestlers to the middle school and move some people around on basketball courts. But possibility we might get that done a little bit early too.
Thanks. Anything else? Okay. So we will move into the action items.
Yeah, we're looking for approval for the next year's strategic plan. Denise is here. If you have any follow-up questions? Again, if you remember, 2 years ago, we moved from a 38-page document to be more reactive and flexible to make annual changes as we keep moving forward, try to progress and improve.
So if a person were to look back over the previous strategic plan, probably you three, Steve, what do you want us to know? One or two things. I know that that's a lot. But.
So to kick off process-wise with the strategic plan, I think a big win over the course of this past year with our strategic plan would be the transparency of our data with all of you. And therefore, because we're keeping all of that data in the document section and in board packets, I think just greater transparency everywhere with both our data and the updates on how we've been working through those strategic initiatives and strategic actions. So to me, that was a big win overall, was the improvement in our ability to communicate with all of you and be transparent with that information. Strategic initiative wise, nearly everything on there has been completed. If you two want to talk about any big wins there.
So this past year was really our first year of implementing across the district our actions of excellence up on the back wall, and it was more just about an awareness and a knowledge and exposing people to those conversations. If you remember, those of you that would have been on the board, a few years ago, we had a committee that rewrote our classified evaluation documents, and we've been using those for a number of years. In those documents, we had some consistent, just regardless of position, some consistent evaluation piece conversation starters. And there's already alignment between that and the actions of excellence, but the terminology is a little bit different. Elise was part of that committee that did that a couple of years ago. So one of the things you'll see on this strategic initiative or strategic action plan for the coming years, taking what we've learned through the actions of excellence and the conversations we've had in departments and going back to those classified evaluations and aligning the current actions of excellence to that front page, that common, regardless of position, evaluation document. As I said, I think there's already a lot of alignment, but the vocabulary, I think, can be tightened up to just reflect exactly what the actions of excellence state and what people have become familiar with over the course of the year. So Lauren and Maggie will bring together a group to start looking at that classified evaluation instrument, the actions of excellence, and moving that forward.
So from a teaching and learning standpoint, we've been on a multi-year journey around grading practices, which I've been to the board several times as have teachers to give you some updates. Really 30 years in now, which is where we are, we've learned a lot about assessment literacy and that it takes assessment literate educators to change grading practices. It's not about just changing your curriculum. So next year we will be district-wide using assessment literacy as sort of the catalyst to bring together grading practices, high quality, obviously assessments, but also that social emotional behavioral learning, because we are going to be focusing on, assessment as a process, which is implementing assessment processes in a classroom learning system, writing assessments and rubrics that are fully engaged to that new proficiency scale, providing high quality feedback to students to help them improve. I'm reading our competency statements for our professional learning goals. Use a body of evidence to evaluate student learning holistically and deliver an assessment process that builds hope and efficacy in students, which is where that social emotional behavioral learning piece comes in. So I'm excited to see kind of these things all start to come together so that hopefully teachers don't view them as separate, but really as part of educating the whole child. So I'm very optimistic about next year.
And so then you've probably noticed some of the kind of newer strategic actions. A lot of this has been continuation of work. Some of the newer ones are focused on that creating our data analysis processes for equity. And so that work will happen over the next year. We've had lots of conversations in this room about discipline data. Carrie has stated several times that that's something that needs to be tightened up, is how we're defining discipline. So she's working with principals over the course of the summer to be able to do some new work there that will hopefully make our data around discipline more meaningful. And then of course, the All Learning is Social and Emotional book study that the principals and TLC team, district administrators have completed will roll to all teachers for next year. So those would be kind of new strategic actions that are also though connected to old strategic actions. Process-wise, next year, Catherine and I met last week to talk through this a little bit. Mark, Krista, Steve, and I had been doing some reflecting on how our strategic plan updates went over the course of this year. So one of the things that we felt like were that those were really, really long. And we also knew going into each one of those that this board does a really good job of reading what's in the board packet. So then we felt like we were telling you things that you might have already figured out from our PowerPoint slides that you had likely already looked at. So we'll be moving to more of a written update for you. So the data pieces will still come to you like they have been, but then we will report to you on some of those strategic actions. Instead of it being a presentation in the board meeting, we will have like reports, updates, document that we complete that just tells you where we are with that work and what the next steps are, what impact it's having, that sort of thing. So those will appear in an information only section of a board packet one meeting, and then the next meeting it will be under the superintendent's report, but will not be a presentation. It will simply be us responding to any questions that you've sent to us during the time that reading those. The format for that, like the timing, will be pretty similar to what it was this year, just because it aligns pretty well with when we get a lot of the data. Scorecards and responses to those scorecards and building and department plan on a page documents will come to you in October. So the ones that wrap up this year will come to you in October.
I would also add, I think it's our work that we continue to do with Studer and leadership development. We spent a lot of time on doing some, whether it's stub your toe conversations or how do you have those tough conversations? How do you roll out all the data? Maybe it's not as good as you want. How do you roll it out? We've done multiple book studies. As Denise said, we're starting with the All Learning is Social and Emotional, again, trying to get that piece and keep the focus on helping kids be successful. We've also done the 4 disciplines of execution. Again, it's about goal setting and trying to get outside your whirlwind and reach out and have input from everyone. We've done another book called Outward Mindset. Again, not only being accountable for what you do, but for trying to be accountable for making an impact on what you do, which just because you do something doesn't mean that it's having the impact that you desire. So a lot of things you have with leadership development, because we know it starts with leadership, and then we've got to make sure we get input from all stakeholders. So a lot of work in that area as well.
Are there any questions?
I guess as you look at all the information that was included in the board packet, what would be your 1 or 2 biggest like takeaways or things that were, so you talked about your 2 celebrations, what are on the other side of the scale that are the things that you want to focus on the most? And not that any part of this I'm not saying is worse than another, but just in looking at that data, what were maybe the things that were most surprising or concerning, or do you see what I mean? Just like what's on your other side that was maybe surprising.
One of our other reading, to me, it's our reading data. Our reading data is, while still probably going to end up where it was last year, we were one of the top bigger districts. It's not going to fall a whole lot. It's not growing. We're not getting past this hump. So part of our strategic action next year, using EduClimber, which is a data warehouse management tool that you all approved a year ago, we are on Thursday at our principal meeting rolling out some new processes. We've been piloting some things with interventions and progress monitoring for kids using that tool. So the goal of all of that work is to go from kind of all over the place with interventions to maybe what are the most effective. If you use that tool to manage your interventions, you can actually do like an analysis of where those interventions are most working the best, and then you can develop like a process essentially for how that's working that other teachers can then use. So between that, and then the other thing we don't have consistently in the district is a student assistance team process, so we'll be working on that on Thursday. Both of those things together are to target those struggling learners that we're not getting yet, and that shows up in all of our reading data. You know, we still have depending on the school, sometimes up to 30% of our kids that aren't meeting that benchmark, and that has to change.
And I think the other one would be the student engagement data, which is related, of course, to the All Learning social emotional book study. Part of the work we've asked building leadership teams to do is to kind of triangulate all of the different survey and from students and from parents around that engagement piece, and start to look for where within all of that data are they really wanting to target as they begin that book study. So the work that they do in their buildings will not be everybody reading this book and discussing it and doing work with it in the same way. It'll be very targeted to what their building data is telling them, and also to coincide with any other work that they've previously done. I think that's another piece that we've talked about, or, you know, we have had several different things happening in different buildings, and we haven't really been able to point at one thing and say this works the best. So we're also trying to help them kind of customize and pull those things together. So I would say those are the two.
I was going to say, I would echo Denise. To me, I think our student engagement, I think it's just natural for us. And, you know, I say it's easy to fall back into our old habits or thinking because we're the adults, we're the experts. And so when we think about student engagement, we think we know what kids want. And I think we've just renewed conversations around listening to student voice and saying, instead of the adults in the room looking at the student engagement data and from our brain saying, well, here's what kids want, this is what they need in order to increase their engagement, getting back to taking the time to roll that data out in an effective way with kids and really take the time to listen. And I think that's just, it's something we've talked about a lot before, but it's hard. It takes time, and it takes a commitment. And so I think I've just heard us have a renewed commitment to engaging kids. I can see Elise nodding her head out of the corner of my eye. And I think that's really important that, you know, taking that student voice and saying, what is it you need? What makes school a place you want to be? What needs to happen for school to feel safe, to feel that the adults here care for you, and getting back to listening to that voice, I think would be an important step.
Mark touched base on one that to me hit home. Most all of our schools, students have a lower percent of students said they feel safe at school. And I don't know if that's all internal or when there are national school shootings, it just creates a certain type of fear. But again, we have to continue to look at what we can do. And to me, another one, while our staff engagement is still much higher than the national average, we definitely took a dip. So we'll definitely be looking at that as well, make sure we keep our staff engaged. And that's why we're doing all this work about the outward mindset, about the impact of others.
Great, thank you. I appreciate those comments. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Steve. Okay, so at this point, do I have a motion to approve the new strategic plan?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And now we're moving on to the exciting concrete unit. John?
It wasn't as exciting as it could have been. We put out a request for quotes to 4 different contractors: J&T Concrete, West Des Moines, Near Construction, Solus Construction, and Cameron Mitchell Construction. apparently everybody's busy. So we got one quote back from JT. Looking at the unit pricing, it looks pretty reasonable. He's actually, we've used him many years, and if I can ever get him to do a pour at Karen Acres, he almost gives it to us, because apparently he went there for like a year. So, and the reason unit pricing instead of getting quotes on individual work throughout the district is it's crazy, and I wasn't sure with their schedule and what we got going on, how much we'd be able to get done. So we do know that what we can get done, which I think priority is 2 play pads at Jensen, and a parent pickup area at Karen Acres. So then it'll be patching some of the more damaged concrete throughout the district until we run out of time, which we're already halfway through June. That's what happened. So that's it in a nutshell. If you got any questions, try to answer them.
I'll move to approve. JT Concrete.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. John, looks like you're up again.
Yep, waste and recycling. We put out requests for quotes to Waste Management, Aspen Waste Services, Sparta Waste Services, and Ankeny Sanitation. Aspen did not return any numbers to us. If you saw what was sent in the board packet, Ankeny Sanitation was slightly lower than Waste Management. The problem I was running into with Waste Management is they didn't want to quote it the way I needed it quoted to do apples and oranges. They wanted to quote it the way they wanted to quote it. They also sent contract revisions back. One of them included that they would not be providing drawing a blank. The only thing I can think of perverts. The sex offender, thank you. Sorry, been a long day. They would not be sending a sex offender signature.
It's been a long month.
So, knowing that when Waste Management comes to pick up their current dumpsters and everything, there's going to be some increased charges that first month, but through the first year and second year, Ankeny Sanitation would be the lowest quote. So, kind of got a choice there. Devil we know, devil we don't. And so, I am comfortable with either, but the contract we used on this was the same one we used a couple years ago, and we just changed some dates. So I know it's good, but trying to get the changes that Waste Management wants is going to put some time in front of ours. So ASI is clean. Waste Management has a few bugaboos we have to take care of.
I move to approve the contract for waste, or for Ankeny Sanitation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Thanks, John. Item D, we are being asked to approve the stall application certificate for their first payment.
Catherine, can you remind me are we paying them a percentage or fee for services rendered? I can't remember how our contract was. I guess it's not really important, just if anybody remembers off the top of their head. Do you know, Mary Beth?
I don't recall.
Should be a
I
percentage.
should remember sex offenders
Okay,
What is it?
Should be.
so it's broken down into a
monthly.
monthly percentage.
That's what I remember.
Or probably-
I wouldn't-
Okay,
That sounds
I wouldn't bet my life on it.
all right, thank you.
That's what I think it is.
I guess my question is, why is this pulled out as its own agenda item and not just part of the consent agenda with Bill's approval? Is there any reason?
No.
Because we've already approved Stoll to be our vendor, right?
We could do
We're
that.
paying them in appropriation with the terms of the agreement.
Sure.
I guess I'm just curious.
No reason.
Okay.
We'll move to consent, so that's a great idea.
For this purpose, are we moving into consent now, or are we voting on it now?
It sounds like
Probably
we're moving
can't.
into
Because it's in
consent.
the agenda this way,
Yeah.
24
Sorry.
hours ahead.
Oh, so we do need to vote on it.
So do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the stall pay application number 1.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. And we are being asked to approve the engagement letter with Alders concerning the boundary lines.
You might recall the boundary line issue, so we're going into next fiscal year. I'm not, and I'm not sure how long this is supposed to last, but I think it'll be done by the winter. And Beth Grove had come and explained that a little bit to the board. But again, just needing that engagement letter in place so that she can represent our district. And we're really, it's very minimal, our participation in this.
So the issue originally was between West Des Moines and Urbandale, right? As far as the how it affects us directly. So the other districts here are just represented because they're represented
It's
by all.
any, yeah, all of those districts have issues in Polk County.
Oh.
And so if any district touches us, then those, except with the exception of Dallas Center Branch, because I think that one it did have. But those are districts that Polk County is asking to be cleaned up, all their boundary lines. So Des Moines, Saydell, us, West Des Moines.
Move to approve engagement letter.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Item F. So.
National Playground.
Mhm.
Anybody, do you have questions about that?
So none of this equipment will be moved. It's only going to be moved once, right? It'll stay at Jensen until,
Correct.
indefinite. I mean, it'll stay there. It's not moving to the,
Yeah, the
Yes,
one
one.
piece that's gonna get, the newest composite piece, the big one, it's gonna be taken apart, stuck in a Connex box down at middle school, and it'll be reinstalled at ES1, whatever the name will become.
But the rest of the stuff, Alders, to your point, is what you're asking is it'll stay at Jensen until,
so.
till the
it's
next
2
6 years.
2 years of usage, right? Till they move.
So, yeah,
But then would stay,
Is it
Can be
staying once
available.
ES1 is done? I think that's Aldrich's question.
No, he
Oh,
answered
okay,
it.
sorry,
Just one piece is going to ES1.
just,
got it.
yeah, I will
Sorry.
say though, that the way we're gonna do this, if we did decide to move it, it'd be a lot easier, because we're gonna make it, instead of footings in the ground, we're gonna make it a bolt-down plate system. So if the site becomes a park, we'll probably just leave it there. But if it ends up needing to go somewhere else, it'd be a lot easier than
Okay, okay,
doing the work, so
okay.
try to be smart about it. We've often found we have no idea what's gonna happen in 2 years.
I move to approve as recommended, the removal of the equipment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Okay. Now we're moving into the first reading of the miscellaneous policies divided out over 6 items.
And just kind of additional background, I'll have another, I think, 8 or 9 policies coming your way. I think the budget committee's gonna look at it, finance committee one more time, even though I think they're best to look at it. I think you've looked at a couple, but then I'll have to send them to Allers again. But what I'm doing is I'm trying to get totally caught up. We do the policy primer with ISB, and going back, found some that weren't there. Some of these I really don't necessarily know if we have to change. I was just trying to change them with the most recent language that ISB has. So basically, on the brand new ones, I copy them word for word, except put our school in, then they go to Allers, and then sometimes either Christie or Danielle will make other additional legal changes, and that's why we give you the red line so you can see what the changes are. We had trouble putting them in there since they're all policies. You can only put so many in, so the best way we could do it was break it out by policy numbers.
Okay, so at this point, I'll just bring these up. If anyone has. Do you have questions?
Sorry, I was asking if we voted on it, but we just read them. I should know this by
Okay.
now, so I'm sorry.
Okay, so the first one is 205 elections. It obviously needed to be changed because the course of the elections has been altered from the legislature, I assume.
Correct.
Any questions on that, clarifications? Okay. So 207, terms of office is also altered, I think, to meet the timelines spelled out by the legislature. Questions, comments? Okay. 233, Code of Ethics. I believe this one is proposed because it was more concise and it's one page or two.
It's the abbreviated version. Yeah, that I can probably take out those spaces to make it. I always try to get the one page if we can.
Mm-hmm.
They actually gave us 3 different versions.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of what the minimal, the intent of all 3 are very similar.
Mm-hmm. I like that we decided on parallel construction on the last 4. Nicely done. They all start with will. We have any questions, comments? Okay. Okay, 454.
Yeah, I do have a comment. So I don't necessarily know that I have a recommendation on how to change it. One of the requirements that we're requesting for employees to transport students in their personal vehicles is proof of insurance, which is a really common thing to ask for. I'm worried that we're unwittingly getting our insurance or getting our employees in trouble for indemnification purposes, because most personal auto policies have language that specifically excludes any claims that involve work-related activities, and that would most definitely include transporting students. So I just am concerned, do our teachers know, usually when you do things of that nature, you have to have a specific endorsement on your personal policy. So in terms of indemnification, it really doesn't do anybody any good for them to have personal auto insurance other than showing they're a responsible vehicle owner. But I also worry that for uninsured, underinsured motorists, I understand there's workman's compensation, but for personal injury and punitive damages, there would be essentially no recourse for them under certain aspects of their policy. And I'm concerned that we need to be more forthcoming about that.
Do we know, does our general liability or our policy here at the school cover such things?
I believe so.
I was
We
gonna
could talk
say.
with Janelle Friedman from Jester and just put that down, and
Okay.
she could maybe address that more specifically.
No, it wouldn't cover punitive damage unless there was gross negligent employee. A workman's comp coverage would be the one that would take care of it for employee, not our excess liability carrier.
I just didn't know. I know, like at my work, we had cover insurance for our people. I thought for similar things, but I'm not familiar enough to know all those ins and outs. Yeah.
I could email her that
Personal use of
policy
auto.
and ask for her opinion on that.
But I think it's a great point to bring up, definitely, to understand and make
Yeah,
sure
we
that we
had
have
something on
coverage.
our business policy that would not exclude their own policy language. That would be great. But usually, typically, our policy wouldn't supersede their policy necessarily.
Now, this is one of those that's interesting because, again, word for word, it came from ISB, and then you can see legal counsel made many adjustments. So, but good questions. Are you, I think I have an idea, Mary Beth, you have an idea as well, which questions we
What I was just gonna do is just email her that policy and ask if she felt that our employees were covered individually or under their own policies.
Ask for punitive damages, not just workman's comp. Because yes, we know they're covered under workman's comp, but we mean if they needed to get excess liability under their own policy for punitive damages above and beyond if somebody else was at fault.
How frequently are employees asked to use their own vehicles?
I'm guessing it's extremely rare, maybe if a parent doesn't pick up a child and somebody says, I'll take them there, or.
Because there's all kinds of reasons not to do that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm guessing.
In addition to
At
insurance.
least we probably answer that, but
Definitely
I bet
right.
it's less than 5 times a year.
Any
Mhm.
planned stuff would be involved district, the district vehicles we purchase.
Yeah. Okay, are the questions clear for the next? Yes? Mark?
Okay.
Okay.
I'm good.
Limitations to employment references. It's 455,
Yeah, yes,
which looks brand new.
yes. Yeah, and honestly, I struggled to even understand what it was saying at first when I first read it. So it's, yeah, it's 455.
Questions? Since none of us know what it means.
Thank you.
Okay, 516. Come on, Johnny. Student health for administering medications at school. Questions? Clarifications? Okay. 543. Student expression, which is also basically rewritten. Questions on that? Clarifications? I'm sorry, this is painful, but you guys are being remarkably cooperative. Okay. This is 540, what is this one? 7, parent and family engagement.
I guess I had a question on this one,
Uh-huh.
and maybe the board can just help me better read it and understand it. So when I read this, I was struggling a little bit with, it says the board will, and like the board, this is our job, to involve parents and families in the development of Title I, post on the district website, review the SIAC and solicit feedback. We will provide PTOs at the school. Like, I feel like that's not our job. But maybe I was misreading it or not understanding it. When you read all these items, it says the board, but I feel like it's more, this is, the district will do this.
Yeah, we have Laura Justman review this one and the next one you're gonna look at, because from a Title I coordinator perspective, and that's what we want as well. I guess
Really?
it's to us to put in place a structure by which we engage families
Mhm.
in these activities.
Right, and I feel like you just said, like the most buildings, I think, have a goal or programming surrounding engaging families. Obviously, the board doesn't host an event. So I'd be really curious why the IASB thought it was the board, and then I would recommend the wording change to the district or some such wording.
Well, and then at the bottom,
Metaphor.
if you look at that bottom part, it says the last paragraph says the Title I plan will include how the district will address the requirement of Title I parent and family engagement. So I wonder if that's maybe a typo.
The only thing I would say is, again, others also did this so they didn't make the change, because I ran it, actually, Laura saw it twice, because I had already given it to her before you guys did. So I guess, am I hearing then at the top, we should just write the district will?
Right, or I guess explain to us why, or just help us understand why it says the board would be my,
The only thing I
Comment.
can think of is because the board's the governing body of the district legally. And when we submit our title applications, we have to check the box that says we comply with all the.
There's
legal
assurances we
requirements.
have
Right,
to check.
that's the only thing I can think of.
But we could use different language there as far as, well,
the board.
enact
oversight or
policies to
something.
support.
The following activities or something.
Yeah.
Like the board believes parents and families should become involved. I don't know, there's like a belief statement. Most policies start with like a board belief statement, and the action is more.
I'd be intrigued with what neighboring districts have done to fulfill this requirement. what the language might look like. And since everyone has to do it.
Part of me wonders if it's because when you're talking Title I, you're also talking federal funds.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why it can't be in the governing body. Because again, when the two didn't change it, that's why I questioned it then if they both had it the same.
So summarizing, we have a question about whether this should be the district or the board as far as who takes primary responsibility here. And perhaps how other districts have written this policy.
And my only other comment is it might be nice to spell out what SIAC and PTO are. Like, if we're gonna use acronyms, just, you know, if they aren't somewhere else. We did a good job with LEP down there lower, so.
Okay.
I tell my in-laws.
Both the other side.
PTO is down there a little bit further. Thanks.
Okay, the next one is similar policy, but is reflected at the building level. Any questions or clarifications on that one?
I didn't have any on this one.
The end is in sight. Okay, 647. Any questions on this? Okay, 14. Purchasing and bidding.
And maybe just so the board knows, this contract or this policy was looked at the finance committee and made sure that it aligned with the business manual that has been put out with the school and the federal or the state laws, I guess, surrounding what thresholds there were. And we compared it to 3 or 4 peers and kind of did some work to get this put together before. And then obviously it's been through ours and stuff. So we thought this was a good one with all of the construction and things just to kind of get changed and make sure it was all consistent.
And if I may add, those thresholds are still way under what the state requirement is. We just feel we still need to keep it low so the board can have a close safeguard of the numbers.
Okay,
What were
can you
some-
summarize it again? 25,000, 50,000, just in a nutshell. What are the limit? What are the levels?
Anything over 50.
Do you have,
Yes.
can you pull up the business procedures manual? That's the best.
It's right here. I just can't
Oh.
read it.
25 to
because-
50 is superintendent
Okay,
authorized, or anything over 50 is board,
anything over 50 is us.
right? Did I understand that correctly? Yeah. So my question was, the peers that we researched, are they at this level or lower than us?
I need to look back on my notes because we worked on this a long time ago.
Yeah.
But I remember looking a
A lot
lot
of
of
them
it.
We
did
use the
the-
thresholds, which are much higher.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
120.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's much.
So they're in a state,
So we're pretty conservative.
very,
Very
yeah.
conservative, yes.
they're in the state code, I think.
Yeah, they use more the ones.
Okay.
Any other clarifications, questions?
I actually have a chart that we use when we put in the thing, and that's a lot easier. And we'll match that up.
Okay,
But we just didn't bring the chart, because that doesn't need approval. They don't match this, and it's much easier to understand.
yeah. And that is in the code too. Okay, 901. Statement of guiding principles. No? Questions? No? 925. Field change orders. They're not called change orders, they're called field orders. Yeah. Any questions on that?
I think, yeah, and change orders just in general for me, it's always been a little confusing with Cumberland board. Not that you don't do a great job explaining them, John, just that in general, they're kind of
Throw
confusing.
my little bit of homespun humor. Everybody chuckles and says, okay.
Questions? I see there were a number of comments by legal,
It's Christie Law.
okay? Final, 926. Emergency Operations Plan. Questions?
Is this note in blue just for our purpose to know, or is it
Sometimes
supposed to be there in that policy?
it's supposed to be on the policy, sometimes, or no, I'm sorry, it's not there. I just put it there, and then once you put it in there and send it to them, then it comes back and some of that stuff doesn't come off. So otherwise it would be taken
It will
out.
be gone up.
Yeah, I send it usually with hollers when I get there, even though I'm sure they know. But
This is just
when
for our
ISB has it listed as mandatory or not, then I leave that in there. And many times they'll take it out, and many times I won't, but again, we send it to them as a Word, they send it back as an RFP, then we open it back into a Word. Or yeah, and it goes back and forth twice, so sometimes like we couldn't get that off right now, so.
Questions? Okay, thanks. Awesome. We don't have any particular board reports. Got anything, superintendent report? This is our friend Mark Lane's last meeting with us.
Thank you.
Good luck, all the best, and
Not sure
decor.
if I agree with that.
And also, we would like to have everyone meet our new Webster principal, Brandon Schrout, who is right here.
Welcome.
And welcome. We're happy to have you.
You're welcome.
You don't have to come all to all board meetings. We'd love to have you. You're coming from Ames?
Yep.
Yeah, awesome. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. Lots of stuff in the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to bring it forth?
So moved. Second.
Okay. Do we have any questions or clarifications for anything within this very lengthy list?
Yeah, I wish Bill was here tonight so I could ask him a question. I wasn't able to get a hold of him before the meeting. That's my own fault. I didn't, maybe somebody else read something I didn't understand. It seems like this is not a 9-to-5 job for this Director of Activities and Community Education. There's quite a bit of responsibility, a 4-year degree required, but the pay, I'm wondering if that's enough. It seems like
Bill always does a very thorough comparison, and this is the recommendation he brought related to similar positions, managing PAC similar facilities.
okay.
And so I know he did comparative work with facilities both at the K-12 level and at smaller college level in relation to the work.
Okay, and he feels we'll be able to get someone in that price point?
He did.
And I think it's, again, because I agree with you, when you're talking IT, 30,000, it's not a lot of money. But I'm guessing because of those scattered hours, this person will also probably do work on the side in their own areas. Because we need, like, we have people who can set up the use of that PAC. This person, though, has the real IT background when they can fix things on the fly. So again, I'm with you, Stacy. I have to believe this person will have another job or something per se as well.
Okay, so this is
That'd be
a
my guess.
12-month part-time contract? Because it didn't explicitly say part-time, at least not that I read it.
Just because of the hours, I think, it's not an 8-to-5 job, so.
It's typically, I think,
There's not a set number of
weekends and
hours.
evenings when there are
yeah,
events
typicals
there.
are Correct.
As needed, okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's more, it has typically been more than 40 hours a week, but it has been unique time schedule. And when we had the position, we had turnover in January, and we went to just using building supervision and managed the PAC that way. I think with the, what Bill is hoping for is, as Steve talked about, that IT background, but also more of an arts management background. Thinking about the way that we have updated the PAC with the SoundCloud and some of the technology in there, that there's an untapped maybe income stream of having theater events, concerts, things of that nature, that he's looking for somebody just with kind of that arts management or arts connections in the metro that would also then have that flexibility of, if there's a community theater that's renting the space to, have a show on a Friday night and 2 shows on a Saturday and a Sunday. Obviously, they're spending a lot of time on site in the evenings with those folks getting things set up and ready for their productions too.
You can't just have anybody in there fooling around.
Right, exactly. And especially with the equipment we had and now the equipment that's been installed just in the last year, there's even more of a sensitive nature to having a skilled person, a knowledgeable person in that role.
Okay, great question.
And I do
I
want
had
to
a
point
similar
out,
concern.
there was an addendum on your personnel on your tables as well.
And it's attached in there too.
Yes.
Any other clarifications, questions? Okay. May we vote then on approving the consent agenda? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Do we have any other matters? We already did the introductions.
I'll add to that. I had the great pleasure of working with Brandon in Waukee. He was a second grade teacher and I was a counselor. And absolutely one of my favorite things as a counselor was getting to teach classroom guidance in Brandon's classroom. His ability to facilitate learning with his students and the dialogue that they could engage in. Our building, Walnut Hills, at that time was about 500 kids. And some of the richest conversation I had with kids as a counselor were the students in Brandon's room. So his addition to our district is just awesome. I'm really excited that he will be at Webster, joining our elementary principal team, but just the team in general. So it's awesome. Very sad that I don't get to work with Brandon.
Great, thank you.
Well, thank you, Mark, again, for all your service to the
Thank
district and your great work that you've
Great
done,
pleasure.
and continued success and everything, and they will find you back here soon.
Go Vikings.
Okay, anything else? We're good at cause. Okay, we have a meeting evaluation. And perhaps at the same time, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Just a reminder, don't look at the numbers on here, look at your sheet.
All in favor?
Aye.